What would you do if, just as you thought you'd gotten away with cheating, your husband handed you divorce papers and proof of everything, right in front of your family? Can you really blame him for fighting back, or am I still the victim here? I stared at Emery across our kitchen table, watching him methodically cut Ruby's pancakes into perfect squares. Everything he did was methodical, precise, boring as hell. "You're going to be late for work again," he said without looking up, his voice carrying that familiar tone of quiet disapproval that made my skin crawl. "I'm not late, I'm taking my time," I snapped back, stirring my coffee with more force than necessary. Some of us don't live our entire lives by a stopwatch. Ruby looked between us, her 8-year-old eyes wide with the kind of awareness kids have when they sense tension but can't name it. Emery noticed and immediately softened his voice. "Hey, sweetheart, finish your breakfast. I'll drop you off at school today." "But Mommy has important work stuff," I interrupted, already grabbing my purse. The truth was, I couldn't wait to get out of this suffocating house and away from my husband's judgmental silence. At 34, I deserved more than this. More than a man who came home every evening, kissed my cheek like it was a business transaction, helped Ruby with homework, and fell asleep by 10:30. Where was the passion, the excitement, the feeling that I mattered? 20 minutes later, I walked into the open plan office where I supervised customer service for a mid-sized insurance company. The familiar buzz of phone calls and keyboard clicks usually annoyed me, but today felt different. Today, Maxon was starting as our new department manager. I'd met him briefly during the interview process last month. Tall, dark hair, with just enough grey at the temples to look distinguished, and a smile that actually reached his eyes when he looked at me, unlike my husband, who barely seemed to see me anymore. "Lirienne, right?" His voice came from behind me as I settled at my desk. "I was hoping you could show me around today, help me get oriented." I turned, and there he was, crisp white shirt, navy tie, cologne that smelled like cedar and possibility. Of course, I'd be happy to. The morning flew by as I walked him through our systems, introduced him to the team, and found excuses to stand closer than necessary when explaining procedures. He listened intently, asked thoughtful questions, and made me feel like my opinions actually mattered. During lunch, we sat in the break room while I explained office politics and workflow issues. His attention never wavered from my face. "You really know this place inside and out," he said, leaning forward slightly. "I can tell you care about doing things right." When was the last time Emery had complimented my work ethic, or noticed anything about me beyond whether dinner was ready and bills were paid? "I try," I said, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. "Sometimes I feel like my efforts go unnoticed, you know?" "I notice," Maxon said quietly, and something in his tone made my pulse quicken. That evening, I came home to find Emery helping Ruby with a school project at the dining room table. They were both bent over poster board, completely absorbed in gluing pictures of different cloud formations. "How was your first day with the new boss?" Emery asked without looking up. "Fine. He seems competent." I kept my voice neutral, but my phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced down discreetly. "Thanks for all your help today. Looking forward to working with you more closely." Maxon. My heart skipped. When had Emery ever sent me a message like that? "Mommy, look!" Ruby held up the poster. "Daddy helped me make it perfect." "That's great, honey." I barely glanced at their project, too distracted by the warm feeling spreading through my chest. Someone appreciated me. Someone saw value in what I brought to the table. Later that night, as Emery brushed his teeth with the same methodical precision he applied to everything else, I lay in bed scrolling through my phone. Maxon had sent another message. "Hope I didn't overwhelm you with questions today. You made everything so easy to understand." I started typing back. "Not at all. I enjoyed our conversation," then deleted it. "Too formal. You're a quick learner. Happy to help any time." Delete. I had a really nice time showing you around. My finger hovered over the send button. This felt like crossing a line, but what line exactly? It was just a friendly message between colleagues. I hit send. Emery emerged from the bathroom in his plain grey pajamas, the same ones he'd worn for 3 years. You coming to bed? In a minute. I didn't look up from my phone, waiting to see if Maxon would respond. He did, almost immediately. Me too. Sweet dreams, Lirienne. I set my phone aside, feeling more alive than I had in months. Emery climbed into bed beside me, gave me a perfunctory kiss on the forehead, and rolled over to his side of the bed. Good night, he mumbled. I stared at the ceiling, my phone glowing with possibility on the nightstand. For the first time in years, I felt like someone actually saw me as more than just a wife and mother going through the motions. What harm could a little appreciation do? 3 weeks into working with Maxon, I found myself looking forward to Monday mornings for the first time in years. He had a way of making even mundane office discussions feel important, valuable. When he asked for my input on restructuring our call center protocols, I felt genuinely useful. Your insights have been invaluable, he said one Thursday afternoon, stopping by my desk. I was wondering if you'd like to discuss the new training program over lunch, somewhere we can talk without interruptions. My pulse quickened. That sounds very professional and productive, he smiled. There's a nice bistro downtown, Giuseppe's. Do you know it? I knew it well. Emery and I had gone there for our anniversary 3 years ago. He'd spent most of the meal checking work emails on his phone. Perfect. I'll meet you there at noon. That morning, I took extra care getting ready. A navy dress that hugged my curves, heels that made my legs look longer, lipstick in a shade called Confidence. When I looked in the mirror, I saw a woman who deserved attention. Emery barely glanced up from his coffee and newspaper when I came downstairs. You look nice, he said absently. Special meeting today. Just lunch with my new manager to discuss training protocols. Technically true. Giuseppe's was dimly lit with intimate booth seating and soft jazz playing in the background. Maxon had already secured a corner table when I arrived, and he stood when he saw me. You look beautiful, he said, and the way he said it, like he meant it, like he'd been thinking it, made my cheeks flush. We ordered wine with lunch, just 1 glass each, but it loosened something in me that had been tightly wound for years. Tell me about yourself, Maxon said, leaning forward with genuine interest. Beyond work, I mean. What makes Lirienne tick? When was the last time someone had asked me that question? Emery knew everything about me already, or thought he did. We'd settled into the comfortable assumption that there was nothing new to discover. I used to paint, I heard myself saying. Before Ruby, before life got so busy, I was actually pretty good at it. What kind of painting? Landscapes mostly. There's something about capturing light and shadow, the way it changes everything depending on perspective. I paused, surprised by my own words. I haven't thought about that in years. Why did you stop? The question hung between us. Why had I stopped? Emery had never asked me to give up painting. He'd been supportive when I'd set up a small easel in our spare room. But somehow, between work and motherhood, and the endless routine of married life, my brushes had gathered dust. I guess I convinced myself I didn't have time, I admitted. That's a shame. You should start again. Life's too short to abandon the things that make us feel alive. His hand brushed mine across the table, just for a moment, but long enough to send electricity up my arm. We talked for 2 hours. About books, movies, dreams we'd shelved, places we wanted to travel. Maxon had been to Italy last summer, had taken cooking classes in Tuscany. He described the way morning light looked on ancient stone buildings, and I found myself hanging on every word. I'd love to show you pictures sometime, he said as we prepared to leave. Maybe over dinner? I should have said no. Should have reminded him I was married, had a daughter, had responsibilities. Instead, I heard myself saying, I'd like that. Walking back to the office, I felt like I was floating. When had I last felt this energized, this interesting? Maxon made me remember who I used to be before I became just Emery's wife and Ruby's mother. That evening, Emery was already home when I arrived, helping Ruby with math homework at the kitchen counter. "How was lunch?" he asked, not looking up from the worksheet. "Productive. We covered a lot of ground on the new training program." Another technical truth. "Good. Dinner's in the oven. Chicken casserole." Of course it was. Emery made the same rotation of meals every week. Chicken casserole on Thursday, tacos on Friday, his mother's pot roast recipe on Sunday. Predictable, safe, soul-crushingly boring. My phone buzzed with a text. I glanced at it discreetly. "Thank you for a wonderful afternoon. You're even more fascinating than I thought. Looking forward to continuing our conversation soon." I excused myself to the bathroom and read the message again, my heart racing. Then I typed back, "I had a lovely time too. Thank you for listening." His response came immediately. "Thank you for sharing. I have a feeling there's so much more to discover about you." I stared at those words, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Desired, seen, appreciated for who I was, not just what I did. When I returned to the kitchen, Emery was setting the table while Ruby practiced spelling words aloud. "Everything okay?" he asked. "You seem, I don't know, different." For a moment I wondered if he could see it, the flush in my cheeks, the extra brightness in my eyes. But then Ruby called out, "Mummy, how do you spell beautiful?" And the moment passed. "Beautiful," I said, and caught my reflection in the kitchen window. For the first time in years, I felt like that word might actually apply to me. That night, as Emery fell asleep beside me with his usual efficiency, I lay awake, thinking about Italian sunlight on ancient stones and the way Maxon's eyes had lingered on my face when he thought I wasn't looking. I wasn't doing anything wrong, I told myself, just enjoying conversation with an interesting colleague, just remembering what it felt like to be appreciated. What could be the harm in that? By the time Emery's mother Marion arrived for her monthly Sunday dinner, I was already on edge. She had a way of looking at me like she could see straight through to my soul, and found it lacking. "Lirienne, dear," she said, accepting my obligatory hug with the warmth of a frozen fish. "You look tired. Are you sleeping well?" "I'm fine, Marion, just busy at work." I forced a smile while mentally preparing for 3 hours of subtle criticism disguised as concern. Ruby ran to hug her grandmother, chattering excitedly about school and friends. At least someone in this family still showed genuine enthusiasm about anything. "Where's Emery?" Marion asked, settling into her usual spot at our dining room table. "In the kitchen, finishing up the roast." I poured wine for the adults, trying to ignore the way my phone kept buzzing with notifications in my purse. Maxon had been texting me all weekend. Nothing inappropriate, just funny observations about his apartment hunting and questions about good neighborhoods in town. My sister Tessa arrived fashionably late, as always, with a bottle of expensive wine and stories about her latest dating adventures. Sorry, she called out, kissing everyone's cheeks. "You would not believe the week I've had. This guy from the gym asked me out, but then I found out he's married, and I was like, absolutely not. Because who needs that drama?" I felt heat creep up my neck. Right, who needs that kind of complication? Emery emerged from the kitchen carrying his mother's famous pot roast recipe, looking pleased with himself. "I think I finally got the seasoning right." "Smells wonderful, son." Marion beamed at him with the kind of warmth she'd never shown me in 12 years of marriage. As we ate, the conversation flowed around me, while I mentally composed responses to Maxon's latest message. He'd sent a photo of an apartment balcony with a view of the city skyline, asking if I thought the morning light would be good for photography. The fact that he'd remembered my interest in visual arts made my chest tight with something I didn't want to name. "Lirienne seems distracted tonight," Marion observed, cutting through my thoughts like a blade. "Everything all right, dear?" "Just thinking about work stuff. We have a new manager, and there's been a lot of changes." "Changes can be stressful," my father Gregory said diplomatically. He'd arrived halfway through dinner, still in his golf clothes. "But sometimes they bring good opportunities, too." "Exactly." I seized on his support. "Maxon, my new manager, he really values my input. It's nice to feel appreciated for once." Emery looked up from his plate. "For once?" The words hung in the air like a challenge. Everyone stopped eating. "I just meant, at work, it's nice when your professional contributions are recognized." I could feel myself digging a hole but couldn't seem to stop. Sometimes I feel like my efforts go unnoticed. "What efforts?" Marion's voice was deceptively mild. "You have a lovely home, a devoted husband, a beautiful daughter. What more recognition do you need?" "I work full-time too, Marion. I contribute to this household just as much as Emery does." "Of course you do," Tessa jumped in, sensing the tension. "Lirienne works incredibly hard. You should see her managing that customer service department. She basically runs the place." I shot her a grateful look, but Emery was studying me with an expression I couldn't read. "I've never said your work wasn't important," he said quietly. "You don't have to say it. It's in the way you—" "Never mind. This isn't the time or place." But I couldn't seem to stop myself. The wine, the stress of keeping secrets, the constant comparison between my husband's predictable attention and Maxon's exciting interest, it all bubbled over. "I just think marriage should be about more than just going through the motions," I continued. "When was the last time we had a real conversation about something other than Ruby's schedule or mortgage payments? When did we last talk about dreams or goals or anything that mattered?" The silence that followed was deafening. Ruby had stopped eating entirely and was staring at her plate with the kind of stillness children adopt when adults are fighting. "Perhaps we should change the subject," Gregory suggested weakly. "No, it's fine," Emery said, his voice eerily calm. "If Lirienne feels neglected, she should say so. Communication is important in marriage." The way he emphasized communication made my stomach clench. Did he know something? Had he seen the texts? "I don't feel neglected," I backtracked quickly. "I just think we could both make more effort to connect, to appreciate each other." "I appreciate you every day," Emery said, still in that unsettling calm tone. "I thought you knew that." Marion was watching this exchange like a hawk. Some people don't recognize appreciation when they have it. They're always looking for something more exciting, more dramatic. But that kind of thinking leads to nothing but trouble. Her words felt like a direct hit. "I'm not looking for drama, Marion. I'm just saying that after 12 years of marriage, maybe we shouldn't settle for comfortable routine." "Comfortable routine?" Emery's voice finally showed a crack of emotion. "Is that what our life is to you?" Ruby suddenly pushed back from the table. "May I be excused? I don't feel good." The guilt hit me like a physical blow. My 8-year-old daughter was getting sick from listening to her parents passive-aggressively tear each other apart in front of family. "Of course, sweetheart," Emery said gently. "Go watch TV in the living room." After Ruby left, the dining room felt like a battlefield. "I think I should go too," Tessa said awkwardly. "Early morning tomorrow." "Don't leave on our account," Marion said coolly. "Some conversations are long overdue." But Tessa was already gathering her purse, kissing cheeks, and making hasty excuses. Gregory followed soon after, muttering about letting us work things out privately. When it was just the three of us, me, Emery, and his disapproving mother, the tension was suffocating. "I should help Ruby get ready for bed," I said, starting to clear plates. "I'll do it," Emery said. "You and Mom can finish your wine." The last thing I wanted was alone time with Marion, but Emery was already heading upstairs. I could hear him talking softly to Ruby, his voice full of the patience and gentleness he used to show me. "You're making a mistake," Marion said quietly once we were alone. "I don't know what you mean." "I think you do." She leaned forward. her grey eyes sharp as steel. "I've watched you tonight, checking your phone, picking fights with my son. I've seen this before, Lirienne. I know the signs." My blood ran cold. Signs of what? A woman who's forgotten what she has, who thinks the grass might be greener somewhere else. She stood up, smoothing her skirt. "Let me give you some advice, dear. The grass isn't greener. It's just different grass, and it comes with different problems. The question is, are you willing to destroy your family to find that out?" She gathered her purse and called upstairs to say goodbye to Emery and Ruby. At the front door, she turned back to me. "My son is a good man. The best. If you can't see that anymore, the problem isn't with him." After she left, I stood in my kitchen surrounded by dirty dishes and the wreckage of what should have been a pleasant family dinner. My phone buzzed again. "Hope you're having a nice evening with your family. Can't wait to see you tomorrow." I stared at Maxon's message, Marian's words echoing in my head. Then I typed back, looking forward to it too, because whatever was happening between Maxon and me, it was making me feel alive again. And that had to count for something, didn't it? 3 months into what I'd started thinking of as my friendship with Maxon, the boundaries had become increasingly blurred. Our lunch meetings had become dinner dates at restaurants across town where no one from our office would see us. Our text conversations stretched late into the night, covering everything from philosophy to our deepest fears. I told myself we were just friends, close friends, the kind of emotional intimacy I'd been missing in my marriage. But when Maxon suggested we meet for drinks at a hotel bar downtown on a Friday evening, I knew we were crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. "I shouldn't be here," I said, sliding into the booth across from him at the dimly lit bar. "But you are here," he replied, signaling the waitress. "That has to mean something." I'd told Emery I was having drinks with Tessa. Another lie in what had become a web of small deceptions. Late nights at the office that weren't really late nights. Phone calls I took in private. A new attention to my appearance that I justified as professional development. "You look beautiful tonight," Maxon said, and the way his eyes lingered on my face made my pulse quicken. "That color is perfect on you." I'd bought the dress specifically for this meeting. Emerald green, fitted, more daring than anything I'd worn in years. When I'd put it on at home, Emery had barely looked up from his laptop. "Working late again?" he'd asked absently. "Drinks with Tessa. I probably won't be home until late." "Okay, I'll put Ruby to bed." Not even a second glance at the dress, the makeup, the effort I'd put into looking attractive. But Maxon noticed everything. 2 glasses of wine in, he reached across the table and took my hand. "Lirienne, I need to tell you something. These past few months, getting to know you, I can't stop thinking about you." My heart hammered against my ribs. "Maxon, I know you're married. I know this is complicated, but I've never met anyone like you. You're intelligent, beautiful, funny. You light up every room you walk into." When was the last time Emery had said anything like that to me? When had he last looked at me like I was someone worth pursuing, rather than someone he'd already won? "I think about you too," I admitted, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. "More than I should." He lifted our joined hands and kissed my knuckles softly. "What are we going to do about that?" I knew what he was asking, knew what I should say. But sitting there in that dim hotel bar, feeling desired and appreciated for the first time in years, I couldn't bring myself to pull away. "I don't know," I whispered. "I have a room upstairs," he said quietly. "We could just talk, privately, without worrying about who might see us." I should have said no, should have remembered my daughter sleeping peacefully at home, trusting that her mother was who she thought she was. Should have thought about my husband, who worked hard every day to provide for our family and never gave me reason to doubt his faithfulness. Instead, I nodded. The hotel room was elegant but impersonal. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city lights, and soft jazz played from hidden speakers. Maxon poured wine from a bottle he'd apparently ordered earlier, and we sat on the couch talking like we always did. but the air was charged with possibility now. Every casual touch of his hand on my arm, every time he moved closer to make a point, I felt the pull of something I'd been denying for months. "You're not happy," he said eventually. "In your marriage. I can see it. It's not that simple. Emery's a good man, a good father. We've grown apart, I guess. Become roommates instead of lovers." "Life's too short to settle for roommates," Maxon said, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "You deserve someone who sees how extraordinary you are." When he kissed me, I didn't pull away. I drove home at midnight with my lipstick smudged and my hair mussed, and a story prepared about Tessa having relationship drama that required hours of discussion. But when I walked into our bedroom, Emery was sitting up in bed with his laptop open, fully awake. "How's Tessa?" he asked without looking at me. "Oh, man trouble. I probably should have come home earlier, but she was really upset." "Mm-hmm." He closed the laptop and set it on his nightstand. "That's funny because Tessa called here around 10 looking for you. Said you'd made plans but never showed up." The blood drained from my face. What? "She was worried. Thought maybe you'd been in an accident." Emery's voice was perfectly calm, but there was something in his eyes I'd never seen before. "I told her you'd probably just gotten your wires crossed, that you'd call her tomorrow to explain." I stood frozen in our bedroom doorway, mind racing through possible explanations. But Emery wasn't asking for explanations. He was just watching me with that unnervingly steady gaze. "I should call her," I finally managed. "Make sure she's okay." "It's pretty late for phone calls," Emery said mildly. "Maybe tomorrow would be better." I went through my nighttime routine on autopilot, brushing my teeth and washing my face while my husband got ready for sleep with his usual methodical precision. But when I climbed into bed beside him, he didn't give me his customary goodnight kiss. "Emery?" "Yes?" "Are we okay?" He was quiet for so long I thought he'd fallen asleep. Then, "I don't know, Lirienne. Are we?" I wanted to confess everything. Wanted to tell him about Maxon, about feeling invisible in our marriage, about the loneliness that had been eating at me for years. But the words wouldn't come. "I love you," I said instead. "I love you too," he replied. But it sounded more like a statement of fact than a declaration of feeling. The next morning, I called Tessa before she could call me. "Where the hell were you last night?" she demanded. "I waited at Murphy's for an hour." "I'm so sorry. Something came up at work and I completely forgot we had plans. I should have called." "Something came up? Lirienne, you've been flaking on me for months. Every time we make plans, you either cancel last minute or just don't show up. What's going on?" I could hear the hurt in her voice and guilt twisted in my stomach. "Nothing's going on. I've just been really busy with work stuff." "Work stuff that involves buying new dresses and coming home with your hair messed up?" My blood ran cold. "What?" "Emery mentioned you seemed different lately. He's worried about you, Lear. We all are." "There's nothing to worry about," I said quickly. "I'm fine. Everything's fine." But as I hung up the phone, I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror. My cheeks were flushed, my eyes bright with a mixture of guilt and excitement. I looked like a woman with secrets. And apparently, everyone could see it. The evidence folder hit the conference table with a soft thud that might as well have been a gunshot. I stared at it, my heart hammering so hard I was sure everyone in the law firm's conference room could hear it. "What is this?" I asked, though part of me already knew. Emery sat across from me, flanked by his attorney and his mother. His face was calm, almost serene, which somehow made everything worse. Beside me, the empty chair where my sister was supposed to be sitting felt like an accusation. "Where's Tessa?" I asked. "She said she'd be here for moral support." "Tessa isn't coming," Marion said quietly. "She's the one who told us about the hotel." The room spun. "What hotel?" Emery's attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Chen, opened the folder with professional efficiency. "Mrs. Vale, We're here today because your husband has evidence of an extramarital affair. Before we proceed with divorce proceedings, he wanted to give you an opportunity to respond. Divorce? The word came out as a croak. Emery, what are you talking about? I thought this was marriage counseling. It was never marriage counseling, Lirienne. His voice was so quiet I had to strain to hear it. I've been trying to save our marriage for months, trying to figure out why you'd become so distant, so critical, so absent. Even when you were right there in our house, you weren't really there. Patricia slid a photograph across the table. It showed me and Maxon entering the downtown hotel, his hand on the small of my back, my face turned up toward his with an expression I'd never seen before. I looked happy, radiant, alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. This was taken last Friday night, she continued, producing more photos. The same night you told your husband you were having drinks with your sister. More pictures followed, Maxon and me at Giuseppe's, leaning across the table toward each other. Walking through the park downtown, his arm around my shoulders. Kissing in his car outside my office building. How long have you been having me followed? I whispered. 6 weeks, Emery said, since the night you came home with your story about Tessa's relationship drama, and Tessa called looking for you. Your husband hired a private investigator, Patricia explained, who documented 15 separate meetings between you and Maxon Dorr over the past 3 months. Meetings that coincided with lies you told about your whereabouts. She spread out printed text messages like playing cards, messages I'd sent to Maxon, messages he'd sent back, intimate conversations about our feelings, our desires, our frustrations with our respective situations. I can't stop thinking about last night. You're incredible. Being with you makes me remember who I used to be. I wish things were different. I wish we could be together without all this secrecy. Reading them now, in this sterile conference room, with my husband's devastated silence filling the space between us, they looked sordid, cheap, nothing like the romantic connection they'd felt like when I was living them. I can explain, I started, but Patricia held up a hand. Mrs. Vale, we also have hotel receipts, restaurant charges on credit cards, and testimony from multiple co-workers who witnessed inappropriate behavior between you and Mr. Dorr. My face burned with shame. Testimony from who? Does it matter? Marion spoke for the first time since we'd sat down. Half your office knows you've been carrying on with your manager. They've been talking about it for weeks. The humiliation was overwhelming. All those times I'd thought Maxon and I were being discreet, we'd actually been the subject of office gossip. All those meaningful looks and private conversations I'd treasured, everyone had seen them. Where is Maxon? I asked suddenly. Does he know about this meeting? Emery's expression flickered with something that might have been pity. Maxon requested a transfer to our Denver office 2 weeks ago. His last day was Friday. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? He left town, Lirienne. The day after the hotel photos were taken, he put in for an immediate transfer. Didn't he tell you? I fumbled for my phone, scrolling frantically through my messages. Maxon's last text had been Saturday morning. Thanks for a beautiful evening. Talk soon. Since then, nothing. His phone had gone straight to voicemail every time I'd called. He's gone, I whispered. He was married too, Patricia said matter-of-factly. His wife filed for divorce last week. Apparently you weren't his first workplace affair. The room tilted. That's not... He said he was single. He said he'd never felt this way about anyone before. He lied, Emery said simply. About being single, about his feelings, probably about everything else too. But that doesn't change what you chose to do. I looked at my husband, really looked at him, for the first time in months. His face was thinner than I remembered, with new lines around his eyes. He looked exhausted, heartbroken, but also resolved in a way that terrified me. Emery, please, I know I made mistakes, but we can work through this. I love you. I love our family. Do you? His voice was still that unnervingly calm tone. Because for the past 3 months, You've been lying to me every day. You've been lying to Ruby, to your sister, to everyone who cared about you. You've been living a double life and making me feel crazy for noticing something was wrong. I never meant for it to go this far. It just happened. It didn't just happen, Lirienne. You made choices. Every time you met him for lunch, every time you lied about working late, every time you put on a new dress and told me you were seeing Tessa, those were choices. Patricia cleared her throat. Mr. Vale is prepared to file for divorce on grounds of adultery. He's also seeking primary custody of your daughter. What? No, I shot to my feet. You can't take Ruby from me. I'm her mother. You're a mother who's been having an affair, Marion said coldly. A mother who's been lying to her child, exposing her to instability and conflict. Do you think that's in Ruby's best interest? I never exposed Ruby to anything. She doesn't know about Maxon. She knows something's wrong, Emery said quietly. She's been having nightmares for weeks. Her teacher called to ask if everything was okay at home, because Ruby's been withdrawn and anxious at school. Children feel the tension, even when they don't understand it. The guilt was suffocating. My beautiful, sensitive 8-year-old had been suffering, while I was off playing out some middle-aged fantasy with a man who disappeared the moment things got complicated. I'll end it, I said desperately. It's already over. He's gone. We can go to counseling, work on our marriage. Please don't take Ruby away from me. It's too late for counseling, Emery said. I can't trust you anymore, Lirienne. I can't believe anything you say. How am I supposed to rebuild a marriage with someone who's been lying to my face for months? Patricia slid a thick stack of papers across the table. These are divorce papers, Mrs. Vale. You have 30 days to respond. Given the documented evidence of adultery, Mr. Vale is likely to receive a favorable settlement, including primary custody. I stared at the papers, the legal language blurring through my tears. This is really happening. This happened the moment you decided another man was more important than your family, Marion said. We're just making it official. As we prepared to leave, Emery stood and gathered his copies of the evidence. For a moment, we were alone in the conference room. I really did love you, I whispered. He looked at me for a long moment, and I saw not hatred in his eyes, but something worse. Disappointment so profound it felt like a physical weight. I know you did, he said quietly. But love isn't just a feeling, Lirienne. It's a choice you make every day. And you stopped choosing us a long time ago. Then he walked out, leaving me alone with the wreckage of everything I'd thrown away for a man who'd vanished the moment our affair became inconvenient. That night, I sat in my car outside our house, my former house, watching through the windows as Emery helped Ruby with her homework at the kitchen table. They looked peaceful together, complete. I realized with devastating clarity that I'd been so busy looking for something more exciting than my stable, predictable life that I destroyed the very thing I'd been trying to improve. And now it was too late.